Hello, my name's Rich Peppiott and welcome to The Spike, where each episode I'll be perverting the course of news. What a big week on Fleet Street, and it doesn't come much bigger than the Queen getting a nasty case of the squits, forcing Her Majesty to step away from her throne and plead with everyone not to make a fuss. A request duly splashed by the Daily Mail all over their front page. It was a decision that was to have unforeseen consequences for Daily Mail editor Paul Dacre just 2 days later. Freed to kill by police blunders.
Told you not to make a fuss, but you ignore me. Make me look like a bitch in front of my subjects. Well, I went out and killed a motherfucker in cold blood. That's right. Who's the bitch now? And I'm warning you, Dacre. Next time you get the galloping trots, I'm taking out a full-page ad in the Times telling everyone about it. You batty boy.
She did warn you. Now the good news is our press have been doing their job this week and asking lots of questions. The bad news is the questions are a bit pants. A new TV commercial from Santander got the Daily Star asking, "Is this the worst TV ad ever made?" Clearly the Daily Star have managed to miss their own foray onto our TV screens.
The Daily Star, just 20p. We've got bigger balls than the sun.
I would love to know who at the Daily Star thought it was a good idea to represent their newspaper as a giant pair of bollocks. The Daily Express, in their latest attempt to convince us that Britain used to be better back in the 50s when people actually bought the Daily Express, ask, "Things ain't what they used to be?" It just stuck a question mark on the end of a statement. The Daily Mail has a more serious question on its lips. Are gel manicures exposing thousands to cancer threat? And when the Daily Mail asks a question, they demand an answer, which must be why on page 19 of the very same edition, they're offering 66% off gel manicure kits so the readers can go find out for themselves. Thanks, Daily Mail. With your carcinogenic scaremongering, you're really spoiling us. One story the press have gone at like pigeons around a half-eaten bag of chips is the conviction of Pryce, the ex-wife of Chris Huhne, for perverting the course of justice. Key to the prosecution's case were dozens of emails in which political editor of the Sunday Times, Isabel Oakeshott, attempts to convince Pryce to fess all on the pages of her paper, assuring her, "If you go with my advice, I don't think you can really lose. And I wouldn't advise you to do something I knew was clearly bad for you." Really? Because if I was compiling a list of things that are clearly bad for you, one might be sticking your cock in a crocodile's mouth, another might be sneaking up on Oscar Pistorius, but one would certainly be confessing to a jailable offence on the pages of a national newspaper. The email exchange also raises the question of where best to hatch a plot to destroy a man's career. A 4-day break in sunny Greece, or in the UK instead, in some nice spa. Are there such things? There's a TV show they really should have watched. It was, of course, Chris Huhne's downfall that sparked last week's Eastleigh by-election and gave a wonderful opportunity for us to watch our press by no means try and influence an election. Here at The Spike, we were very keen to talk to one candidate in particular about his experiences. But unfortunately, he was unavailable. So we had a chat with Labour candidate John O'Farrell instead, who got a savaging off the tabloids after confessing to some dark thoughts in his memoir 15 years ago. John O'Farrell, terrorist sympathiser and Falklands traitor.
Yeah, well, that's just two of the labels that were applied to me. I was recently the Labour candidate in the Eastleigh by-election. I seem to find my entire time trying to bat off angry allegations that I was a supporter of terrorism, that I was pro-IRA, all because of some comments that I volunteered in a political memoir I wrote in 1998. In that, I described how I felt as an angry young man in the middle of the miners' strike, that when the Brighton bomb had gone off, here was me, anti-capital punishment, anti-IRA, hating Thatcher so much it was unhealthy, is the words I used in the book, and yet there'd been a moment that I wished she had died in that bomb. I hated her so much. And I was making a point about hatred being a bad thing in politics, how far I had to grow up before I was politically mature, and Labour was mature enough to take power in '97. But of course, the Daily Mail would not put all those details in that context in, so they just took the phrase about wishing Thatcher had died in the Brighton bomb, and suddenly it was everywhere.
We're going to do a little quiz, of some of the things that were said about you. Who called you a symptom of the raging sickness of the soul that has the modern left in its grip?
Oh, now, would that be... it's not Charlotte Church, no. No, who would that have? Was that Mad Peter Hitchens?
Spot on. Yeah, that's right, Peter Hitchens.
The only man who, if he got rabies, he'd stop frothing at the mouth, I think.
Who called you an incontinently voiced moral reprobate?
Oh... it's the Sun.
That was Lord Tebbit in the Sunday Express.
Now, I'll tell you what I'd say about Lord Tebbit is this story, clearly he had a tragedy happen to him with the Brighton bomb, but when the Mail rang up Tebbit to say, what do you think of that? I think that was the sickest thing of the whole episode. I think he wouldn't have read my book, or he wouldn't have been troubled by my thoughts of a student in the 80s. But to ring him up and saying, what do you think about this guy saying he wished the Brighton bomb had got Maggie? That, I think, was the sickest thing.
Were you surprised at how brazenly papers were prepared to take your words and use them out of context?
And I've also got a short piece of fiction, a sort of novella out, A History of Capitalism According to the Jubilee Line, and in that there's a right-wing character, a fictional character, who talks about pimping Kate Middleton. So I was slammed for advocating pimping. It's a fictional character saying something. It's like, once you start getting writers for stuff that their fictional characters are saying, I mean, it's limitless. You could have Greenpeace could be angry with Herman Melville for the hunting of Moby Dick. I've watched other professional politicians, better politicians than me, during the campaign, and they would say a soundbite, and then the journalist would ask a question, and they would say that same soundbite again, and then the journalist would ask another question, and they would say that soundbite again. I think, how rude. But actually, when you see it cut down on the news, you think, well, they're only looking for the one bit where they can catch you out, trip you up. So you just say what you want to say, and it makes for duller, less interesting, less honest politics, unfortunately, but that is the circus that's been created.
And newspapers often claim to be the cornerstone of our democracy, but also sometimes what they do could be said to undermine democracy too.
When you're standing for Parliament, you are asking people to give you power, and you are promising responsibility in return for that. Now, newspapers have enormous power, but seem to have, these newspapers, zero responsibility. They abuse their power, they lie, they distort, and they pursue private agendas. And that is not a situation which seems fair or right or civilised.
That's all from The Spike. Thanks for watching. If you see a story you'd like us to spike, do get in touch at thespikeuk@gmail.com. Goodbye.